as I'm walking that way, I hear whimpering on the other side of me and then crying. And that really scared me because I'm thinking I'm there by myself. So I froze. I go to look behind me to see what it was, and there was a woman, really messed up, crazy, long, dark hair, this dress that was long and tattered and like she'd been through it.
Have you ever heard of the urban legend La Llorona? Our guest today is going to tell us about her experience while stumbling across with La Llorona. My name is Cassi Moon, and this is Something Scary to Talk About. Hi, Luz. Thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
Okay.
Is this new for you? Being in an interview? Is this your first time?
Oh, yeah. I don't, I've never been in front of a camera or anything like that. And I don't know, I guess the subject matter makes me kind of uneasy.
I do know that you told us a little bit about your story with the encounter with La Llorona, but our viewers haven't got any details. Could you tell us a little bit more of that encounter?
Sure. Well, I was 10 when it happened, and it was during a visit to go see my grandma. She lives in Mexico, so we take some time every summer, about like 2 weeks, to go see her. It was something I really looked forward to all the time. Like, we would go, and her house is like this very interesting, it's like a cabin right next to a lake, and she has like all this wildlife by there, like different frogs and snakes and birds that you definitely don't see in San Antonio. And it was cool because it was like she knew everything about all of them. And I remember I'd seen her handle a snake before, so she was just like the coolest person to me, you know. And so we would do that. We would go out there, play around the lake, skip rocks, and my grandma would show us like, oh, hey, look at this, and, you know, kind of tell us about whatever creature we were looking at. It was cool. She was the best. Like, she just had this way with food, and like I think that's like an every grandma thing.
Serve you twice. And
yeah. I had it in my head that year that I really wanted to have like s'mores for the first time, you know. So I told my dad, like, we should build a fire by the lake. And so we did. I convinced him, and I guess something about that made him think, like, let me tell scary stories or something. That was just like a campfire thing to do. And so he started telling us about La Llorona. And I remember while we were eating the s'mores and he was telling the story, my grandma coming out, and when she realized what he was saying to us, she got really mad. And I'd never seen her talk to him like that before, you know. She was really upset, and I guess for a reason, because we were freaked out, me especially, you know. While he was telling the story, I guess I was kind of looking around and noticing, like, oh, it's really dark and creepy out here, and like, I started noticing all these different sounds that I didn't notice before. So I got really paranoid. So anyway, he never finished the story, and I didn't hold on to it or anything like that, you know, because that just wasn't really my thing. Like, I didn't grow up like watching scary movies or anything like that. I was scared for the moment, but it was nothing that I held on to. And so while we were there, me and my brother were really big on playing hide and go seek. And he was really good at finding me. Like, it was really annoying how fast he could find me. And so this was the day before we were set to leave. And I got really competitive about it. I was like, no, you know, I really want to win this time. Like, out of all the times we played, I really wanted him to give up because he couldn't find me. So we were outside playing hide and go seek, and I thought, let me run deeper into the forest. Like, there's just no way he'll look out there, right?
he'll find you.
Right.
He's not gonna find you like you.
So I ran deeper, and I found a tunnel next to a hill. I'd never seen it before, but then that was kind of what told me there's no way he'll find me. So I went up to the tunnel, and it smelled really bad, but as much as I didn't like the smell, and as much as I kind of I got this vibe, I don't know, I went up to it and there was just this chill that ran through me, but I wanted to win more than I disliked what was going on. So I went inside of the tunnel, and I thought, I'm going to go hide in the middle of it, because if he came by, he's less likely to find me that way. So I squatted in the middle. It's darker. Outside, the sun is starting to set, so it was really dark and really smelly. And some time had passed by, and I noticed I didn't hear him or anything. So I went to the end of the tunnel to go see if I could find him. So I go to the edge of the tunnel, and as I'm walking that way, I hear whimpering on the other side of me, and then crying. And that really scared me because I'm thinking I'm there by myself. And so I froze. And I go to look behind me to see what it was, and there was a woman at the other end. Really messed up, crazy, long, dark hair, this dress that was long and tattered, and like she'd been through it, it was really gross, but it was white once, you could tell. And she was crying, and I knew something was really wrong. She started to come closer to me, and I couldn't move. I was just watching her and noticing that the smell got so much stronger. I wanted to run so bad, but nothing was happening. And so she started to get closer and closer, and I noticed how deformed her face was. And all I could do at that point was just close my eyes. And eventually I noticed the smell disappear. Not disappear, but maybe just it was less intense. So I opened my eyes and she was gone. So when she finally disappeared, I guess I could finally move. And so I was really shaky, and I just collapsed right outside of the tunnel as soon as I got there, and I started sobbing, and I just kind of couldn't believe what I had seen. And just based off of that, it was La Llorona. It was her.
Did your grandma ever tell you about this, or since she reacted so much, did you go talk to her hey,
No.
once you got back?
No.
How did you go back? Did they find you?
Well, after, I had cried, I was able to kind of get up, and I ran back. It wasn't I ran as best as I could, because I was so shaky that it felt when you're in a nightmare and you're running, but it doesn't really feel like you're running, it almost feels like you're in place, sort of thing. It felt like that. It felt like I wanted to run more, but my body was just in shock, So, but when I finally got back, my parents and my grandma were in the kitchen, so I just kind of ran past them. They didn't really even pay attention to me. And I dove right into my bed, and my brother was there already in his bed. And I was always really surprised that he never said anything to me. He never was hey, where'd you go? Or he didn't yell at me or anything. He just stayed in his bed, and I went to mine. He left me alone. And so did my parents. They never even called us for dinner or anything like that. They just, I guess they thought that we were both maybe upset that we were about to leave, or like maybe we were tired from playing. They left us alone. So I stayed in bed, and it was really difficult to sleep, of course, after something like that. So I don't remember falling asleep, but I guess I had fallen asleep at some point, because I remember waking up and seeing that my clock said like 3 something. And I just got this vibe in the air, like just something was wrong again. And I started to smell that smell again. And I started to hear that crying. And I just knew, like, she followed me. So my eyes darted towards the door. The door had been open, and I could faintly make out any sort of lightness you could see in her dress. I could make it out in the dark, and I knew it was her. And so that time, I guess my desperation allowed me to move a little more. I grabbed a cross that my grandma had kept on this nightstand. So I just kept it with me, and, you know, I started praying in my head. And I did the same thing, where I just kind of closed my eyes, and when I noticed the smell was gone, she was gone again. So it was really hard to sleep after that, like I'm talking like years.
Did you tell your brother the story?
No, I never did. I didn't tell anybody, you know, because it was just as crazy as it was, and like as much as I wanted a sense of comfort from it, I was kind of scared to bring it up, because one, I know how crazy it sounds. You know, I know like how, like I could hear my brother like saying like, oh, you made that up, or like, you know, you're a liar, or something like that. And so it just didn't seem worth it to bring it up for that reason. But then on top of that, I guess part of me was afraid of like conjuring her up again if I talked about it. You know what I mean? Like even now, it's just kind of like, I try to tell myself that at this age, she's not going to be interested in me, right? But you hope. So it's never something I wanted to share until we had this family gathering with, you know, my cousins. It was one of my cousins' birthday. And so my brother starts telling everybody about this casting call. And he looks to me, he's like, hey, like, do you remember when we saw La Llorona? And I was so caught off guard, because we'd never talked about it. And I never told him anything about my experience, and he never told me anything. So I was just like wondering where he even got that from. So
Wait, you too?
yeah, exactly. And I was kind of nervous too, because I just, you know, like I said, I didn't want anybody to look at me any type of way. I didn't want them to think like, oh, she's like crazy and a liar or something like that.
Attention.
Exactly. Like, and that's so something that my cousins would poke fun at. So, but we talked about it some more, and he shared pretty much the same thing as me. It happened the same day as him. So like, it made so much sense why he was in his bed already. You know, he had seen her and ran straight home, you know, and he experienced the same sort of stuff as me, as far as like, he couldn't sleep at night. You know, we both could not sleep for years. I feel like I probably took it the hardest, but, you know, he couldn't sleep, and we both kind of got, I guess, a little more religious out of the experience. Like, it just felt like a protectant for us both.
The cross, do you think that helped you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, to this day, I have like a bottle of holy water that I sleep next to, just because, I don't know. It sounds maybe silly, but you never know.
What about your parents? Did you guys discuss it with your parents?
We did, and they actually took it pretty well. Well, not, you know, they weren't like haha about it, but they didn't accuse me of anything. You know, they took it in stride, and it wasn't crazy for them. They were just like, oh, really? Like, we had no idea type of thing. And I don't know.
So
I guess
sound like they know about La Llorona, right?
I have to think, you know, none of them said anything, but I have to think the way that my cousins were watching us tell our experiences, that who knows, like maybe one of them had something similar, or I guess it just seemed plausible to them because of where we were. You know, we were in Mexico, we were next to a lake. You know, I held on to this for like so many years on my own, so it just felt like really good to finally say something about it.
And actually, like, your grandma also reacted badly when they were telling you this scary story, so maybe she might have lived something. Did your grandma know about this? Did you tell her after in that family gathering? Was it with your grandma?
No, my grandma wasn't there. She died before that happened. So, no, she didn't ever know about it, and probably fine, because I know, like, she didn't like scary stuff, and, like, she lives by the lake, you know what I mean? So it's like...
even think, like, maybe she knew about it, and that's why she reacted so bad that they were telling that story?
I think so, like, especially because of, like, where she lived. I think she thought that would, like... She was very superstitious, you know, so I think she was on my same line of thinking that, no, like, you're just gonna, like, bring her around if you talk about her, you know? So, yeah, no, we didn't ever tell her about it, but maybe she heard, and, you know. No, and it makes me feel kind of bad sometimes, too, because after that happened, like, I would make up excuses not to go. Like, I would go stay with my aunt while everybody else went to Mexico, and so I just feel kind of bad that I avoided going there because of that experience, and it just made it even worse to hold it in because nobody knew really why I didn't want to go. It was just, they just were like, oh, you know, she's growing up, she's like a teenager, and it just made me seem kind of like bratty. But yeah, I missed out on some years because of that with my grandma, but she didn't know. We never told her.
Thank you for sharing this story with us.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to make these memories come back. That was very brave of you. And to all our viewers, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to check every Sunday. We're going to have a new episode. My name is Cassie Moon, and this is Something Scary to Talk About.